G'day guys, as many of you know, I love my four-wheel drive racing, and many of you love my four-wheel drive race car, my 80 series. And hey, it's pretty cool, but I've just gone through a major rebuild of the car. I certainly bit off an awful lot more than I can chew, and I chewed like crazy for a couple of months to get it built so I could be out here at the Cliffhanger four-wheel drive event, which is one of the races I do. So, I know many of you have been asking me, what have you done to the car? A lot. Let's go through it. So I'm still running the same lighting system in the front for my spotlights. It's the Ultravision Raptor range of lights and light bar and side lights down here and rock lights. And as many of you know, I love the Ultravision product. I've been running it for over 10 years and it really, really works. So still running the same lights. These lights have done a lot of work and they still work perfectly. So still running those. 4 headlights, I'm running a JTX headlight. These are an 80 series sort of square headlight that you can insert. They do a range of other vehicles, but JTX, these guys here, they supply that sort of light infrastructure. So that's what I've got for lighting. I love that red look. It's pretty kind of cool. And hey, it's the right color for the car, don't you think? The other thing I did in modifying the vehicle is I installed the radiator at the back of the vehicle, so we'll show you that in a minute. But why I did that is it lets me do this. In a race car, I've found that weight balance is really important. You want, ideally, the weight between the front and the rear axle as much as possible. If you have weight way out here, you can hurt your front end. So I've done a lot of work to get the weight back. Part of that is the winch is now mounted here where the radiator used to be. So I've mounted it back there. That's made a big difference to the way the car performs, and it's taken a lot of weight off the front of the vehicle. I really like that. In the engine bay, I've tidied up a lot of the wiring. It was a real mess in here. It used to drive me nuts because you could never diagnose things. So I've removed a lot of electrics out of the engine bay. It's tidied it up now, and you don't have much in the way of things that you don't need. The other thing I've installed in here is what we call a Hydro Boost brake system. Instead of your traditional brake booster, it's got hydraulic brake boosting. This thing stops, just put your foot on the brake lightly and everything stops. It's amazing. So really enjoying that upgrade as well. All right, as many of you know, because I used to brag about it heaps, I used to run air conditioning. Well, that's all died now. That died and it's all gone from the car. But for the air conditioning compressor, which I've turned into what we call an endless air system. So my old AC compressor is now the air compressor for my diff locks and the air spool on the winch. Down here in the suspension is the next area. So I've upgraded the brakes, as I just said, and the next area is my suspension. Because in my opinion, you need good brakes and good suspension for racing, because high average speed is what you're aiming for, not necessarily massive horsepower. So that's my theory. Hey, it is what it is there. Up front and in the back, I've installed a design fab sway bar system, a torsional sway bar. That's this system here. So there's like a spring across the car at this point, and then these arms, and that's the sway bar system. It's really packaged up there, protected and nice, and gives me a huge amount of flex and articulation in the vehicle. The next thing, front and rear, I've installed hydraulic bump stops, or hydro bumps as we call them. These are an adjustable and tunable bump stop so that when you hit a jump and land, that can absorb the shock loading and you don't get that big jarring hit that you will traditionally get from a normal bump stop. I've got the Superior Engineering suspension system in here, so the Superior Engineering Remote Reservoir 2.0 shock absorbers, along with their coil springs and their bump stops. I've also got the Superior Engineering limit straps. Now what these do is when we jump, the axle falls away from the vehicle and the limit strap catches it so that we don't rip the guts out of our shock absorbers. Up here on the coil tower, I've got a ramped customs tower brace setup. So this braces the coil tower so if you have a hit, it doesn't bend. And also because I'm running the hydro bumps, it gives it a lot more strength and support in this area. So that's been there's been a lot of work in the front end here of the vehicle, but it's all paying off really nicely. The way the vehicle's handling is chalk and cheese over what it used to be like. The next thing we've got is in the axles here from Roadrunner Off-Road, we've got a set of RCV CVs and axles. These are a really good high quality axle. I run them in a race car, and a lot of race car drivers or people that wheel extremely hard will run this style of CV and axle. But if you're running a heavy touring four-wheel drive, the RCV brand from Roadrunner Off-Road is well worth looking into. They are expensive, but they are strong. And if you're running a heavy touring four-wheel drive, you are working your drive line extremely hard, so it's well worth looking at that product. The next area that I was having a lot of grief with was the way the body was mounted to the chassis. It was just the factory setup, and I was ripping all of the body mounts out of the body. All the spot welds were breaking and stuff. So I've made up mounts that go from the roll cage directly down to the chassis. So guys, I thought I'd show you some of the modifications I've done to the race car. So I've just put it over here. So we've got a few different things we've fitted up. Torsional sway bars in the front. A nice oil lubrication system for the braking system. And so we've done that modification. That was good. Superior suspension, limit straps. We've got the DFI Mad Matt manufactured cross member system with internal bushes to allow flex across the vehicle. Down under here, we've got these chassis mounts that tie the roll cage to the chassis. We've got front there and rear here. Bash plates for the transfer case, because I tend to rip some plugs off them. Bash plates for the automatic. Custom exhaust system made out of cattle rail. They use this in farming. I use it in my race car so I can get my exhaust through the chassis rail under the body. And then a nice lump of lobster cuts to step the exhaust down there into a beautiful 450mm hot dog with no baffling, so that's why she's noisy as. Makes you feel like you've got horsepower when you don't. Down here we've got a DFI torsional sway bar in the rear of the vehicle, mounted off the chassis mounts there, and working. Again, superior engineering suspension with the hydro bumps, limit straps, and all of the work. So we're going to stick this back on its wheels so I can show you the rest of the car. Moving further back, you can see a bit clearer here the limit straps for the rear of the vehicle. So that's the same as the front. Again, we've got the Superior Engineering shock absorbers and coil springs. The team at Superior Engineering did tune the suspension for me, so it's proving to be excellent. It's working really, really well. My average speed has definitely increased over what the vehicle used to be. Up the back here, I had to change the way my spare tyre mounted. You know, I used to love running them in that vertical position. I just thought it looked cool, but I had endless trouble securing them, so I've made this mount up and that's working for me. In the back here, the change is primarily that we now have the radiator up here with a set of Ford electric fans, and the Toyota Land Cruiser radiator has been, and I made up a shroud to mount all of that. And then down under there, we've got a 90-litre fuel cell. So that gave me 90 litres of fuel capacity in a tank up in the back here where it's a lot more protected. Coming into the cab, because the list doesn't finish, I should add, I've also got the Design Fab Industry torsional sway bar. I had to do a custom design up in the back here. So I've got those torsional sway bars front and rear. Inside the car now, I've basically gutted the old dash, wiring, heater, air conditioning, all of that's gone, and I've got a complete custom dash. Okay, I've got some of the original parts there, but only for token gestures primarily. And on the dash cluster now, my glasses case. In here, I've also got a fridge now. We've got a little 12-litre fridge so we can keep our drinks cool. And for my locker controls, I've gone from Roadrunner Off-Road. I've got a set of air spool or air operated locker switches, and they just simplify the system. You have an air line from your compressor to the switch to your locker. No electrics involved. Solid, reliable, really pleased with that. And then I've also installed what we call a PDM, Power Distribution Module. It's an electronic fuse and circuit breaker system. I've got that in the dash here, and that's controlling most of the primary systems in the vehicle, and it just simplifies the wiring of the vehicle. I've mounted a reverse camera on there because with the rear radiator in here, I can't see out the back anymore. So I've got a camera in there so it gives me a bit of a view out the back. That's right, I've done a lot of work. But so far, it's all paying off. The work has been worth it. As you can see, the car is a lot higher than it used to be. I've gone up about 150, 170 millimeters in ride height of the body. Some of that was body lift and some of that springs. And hey, if you can support the companies that are supporting me, that is greatly appreciated. So big thanks to All 4x4 Spares, my naming rights sponsor, Superior Engineering, Maxxis Tyres, Roadrunner Off-Road, and a number of Ultravision Lighting, Treads. These guys have come on board and really supporting me, and it's greatly appreciated. So give them support if you'd like to. All right guys, I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails. I gotta go racing.